Yoo Joonghyuk's entire body was trembling. I can't die. I will never die here. Yoo Joonghyuk's desperate will was being conveyed through Omniscient Reader's viewpoint. Hey, you. This Yoo Joonghyuk refused to regress. The sponsor of incarnation, Yoo Joonghyuk, is looking at his incarnation. Yoo Joonghyuk's sponsor was silent as this situation occurred for the first time. It was a mysterious silence. It seemed to be both angry and sad. Or perhaps there was no response. Not long after that, the gaze on Yoo Joonghyuk disappeared. The stigma, regression level 3, has been cancelled. Crazy. Something like this was possible. The light of the stigma disappeared, and Yoo Joonghyuk once again sagged down. His barely opened eyes closed, and his mouth was mumbling something. I felt his desperate will to live. It was Yoo Joonghyuk's unique commitment to somehow survive. Yoo Joonghyuk's thoughts were in my head. Break it down, so I can eat. I pulled out another Great Return pill, turned it to powder, and poured it into his mouth. The stories of the fallen man slowly stopped collapsing. It's fine. Yoo Joonghyuk was betting everything into this round. He decided to forsake the premise that it was okay to fail a few times and to remain in this world. Perhaps he had lost consciousness, but Yoo Joonghyuk didn't say anything else. Instead, the stories wrapped around Yoo Joonghyuk's body shone brightly. The story, Life and Death Companions, wants to continue. Life and Death Companions. It was a story that didn't exist for Yoo Joonghyuk in the original novel. What is your relationship to Yoo Joonghyuk? We are life and death companions. Was that Chungmuro? It was clearly the conversation I had with Gong Pildu. I couldn't help laughing. Now we would really live together or die together. I ran while holding on tightly to Yoo Joonghyuk. My party members shouting in the distance could be seen. I felt a hot heat behind me. Together with a fierce wind, fireballs narrowly brushed over my head. The chasing constellations were already right behind me. Did you call the Demon King? Do you know what you have done? The constellations roared as a formidable aura poured towards me. Stupid bastard! Now the 73rd Demon Realm will perish. I shouted at Lee Hyung-sung in front of me instead of replying to them. Lee Hyung-sung, she! Yoo Joonghyuk's body flew through the air, and Lee Hyung-sung caught him. At the same time, I turned around and reflexively punched out. A running constellation collided with me and screamed. Electrification struck the tail of the scorpion goddess, and then the unbroken faith slashed at the thunder-eating bird. The blade of faith absorbed power and shone brightly. Blood splashed, and I unleashed with all the power of electrification. The number of constellations that followed me was 7. It was a number I couldn't afford by myself. The bigger problem was that the dark clouds in the air were thickening. Dark clouds flocked like a sinister omen, and the stars shining towards the 73rd Demon Realm disappeared one by one. In fact, this is why I didn't call Asmodeus until now. A series of dark lightning fell from the sky, and the frightened constellations jumped back. Sparks flew in the air, and the Demon Kings descended. Now that Asmodeus was here, there was nothing holding back the other Demon Kings. Unfortunately, the Demon Kings weren't on my side. The Demon King, maker of discord, has appeared in the demon world. The Demon King, monarch who was a philosopher about corpses, has appeared in the demon world. The summoning of the incarnation bodies alone seemed to surpass the other constellations. Now there was no one who could help me. The 73rd Demon Realm is responding to your story. The only thing I could believe in was the stories I had built. Everybody, step back. Maintain your strength as possible as I buy time. Then one of the party members went wild. There was a roaring sound from my side. Department Head Nim? What? Han Myung-oh activated one-legged Swift Runner and started running somewhere at a tremendous speed. It was the direction I came from. It was the place that contained Demon King Asmodeus. Demon King Asmodeus laughed cheerfully. Arrows of light struck all over his body, and blood flowed from his torn arm. However, only feelings of pleasure and joy could be seen on the face of the little girl. I'm happy. This is fun. Many constellations lost their incarnation bodies due to the bloody grip. However, there was still many constellations remaining. The Demon Kings were basically existences equal to narrative-grade constellations. Normal constellations were unknown, but there was no chance for Asmodeus to win against one of the Lokapala, Surya. Surya opened his mouth like he couldn't understand. I wonder why, Demon King of Lust and Fury. There was the sound of a giant drum bursting in the distance. Perhaps the constellations chasing the Demon King of Salvation were having the final showdown. Surya couldn't understand it. Why were these humans still resisting? Why was there a Demon King taking sides with a human? Asmodeus smiled like he was slightly exhausted. Surya raised his left hand and the attacks of the constellation ceased. Asmodeus, why are you siding with trivial humans? Siding? I'm not siding with anyone. Asmodeus grinned while licking the blood on his hands. It just seems fun. Fun? You don't know. What's the story of the Demon King of Salvation? I also saw it. It is a common story. Asmodeus made a big fuss at the words. Surya, you must have lost your eyes from all the light pouring out. I told you before, if you want to enjoy the stories for a long time, take good care of your eyesight. I admit that the child is a good one among the new stars. However, it is a normal level in the star stream. He doesn't yet have a myth-level story. Surya frowned as his status spread out. Asmodeus was still laughing. Myth-level story. You have lived for a long time, but you're still judging the stories by that? It's only a human story. No evaluation is needed. All stories eventually depart from history. Asmodeus, you played around in the Gourmet Association and now you're saying this. Then do you want to keep going? You will eventually lose your incarnation body. Well, I suppose, but before that... The constellation was narrowing the distance one step at a time, and Asmodeus suddenly opened his mouth. By the way, Surya, why are you obsessed with the Demon King of Salvation? Obsessed? What do you mean? It isn't just you, but the nebula. Is that right? It seems you are the one who is blind. At best, it's human history, as you said, yet you and Vedas keep trying to recruit the Demon King of Salvation. You failed, and now you're trying to kill him. This isn't exactly like a giant nebula. At this point, I want to ask something. Why are you doing this? Surya had no words for a moment. There was a subtle emotion on his face. Surya hurriedly raised his right hand as if to hide his feelings. It was a sign for the constellations to attack. At this moment, Asmodeus said, Wait! I see, Surya. I heard about what happened at the Gourmet Association. Surya's raised hand stopped. The Demon King of Salvation is pursuing the last scenario. That's why you hate him, right? Surya's fingers trembled, showing his agitation. Asmodeus scoffed at the shaking. Oh, it's because you can't get the qualification of the end. A spear of light pierced Asmodeus' body. Asmodeus' lips held a deep ridicule as he was constantly pierced by spears of light. Blood dripped down. The urgently implemented incarnation body was much weaker than usual. Asmodeus held the intensities that were flowing from his torn skin. The human body is really uncomfortable. Asmodeus ignored the incoming constellations and looked up at the sky. Stars could be seen through the dark cloud. The light and darkness in the sky were competing against each other. The strong existences surrounding the 73rd demon realm were moving. Asmodeus had lived for a long time, but he hadn't seen something like this before. Today, something tremendous was happening in the demon world. Surya's spear of light moved, and the constellations poured magic power towards Asmodeus. The moment that Asmodeus' incarnation body was going to die, a cloud of dust obscured the view of the constellation. The astonished constellations passed for a moment, and then someone embraced Asmodeus' small body. Even Asmodeus was surprised this time. He'd lived for many years, but had never been saved by anyone. You... Han Young-oh was running while carrying him. One arm and a part of Han Myung-o's left arm had disappeared from the Constellation's attacks. Asmodeus muttered with a bemused expression. Why? He knew the identity of this person, but Asmodeus couldn't understand why this person came here. Han Myung-o might be a member of his household, but this loyalty... Han Myung-o strongly hugged Asmodeus without answering. A blind and big heart could be felt. The emotions weren't directed at Asmodeus. Asmodeus smiled as he was held in Han Myung-o's arms. Really, this scenario is truly interesting. I'm sorry, everyone. I think you have to come with me. The moment Kim Dokja said this, Lee Hyung-sung was the first to stand up. I was waiting. Yoo Sung-an, the Breaking the Sky master, followed while the frightened Shin Yoo-sung clenched her fists. Osu, who was the size of a guinea pig, barked. It was a humbling power, but they were determined. Humans didn't back down in front of the status of the Constellations. There was an explosion, and the battle began. 1 blow broke bones, 2 blows caused a deep wound, and 3 blows couldn't guarantee their life. The Demon Kings were making things more and more chaotic. The Demon Kings flew through the air like released strings. It was Lee Hyung-sung who flopped down first. The Chimera Dragon screamed as its wings were broken. Jang Hayoung sat down and watched all of it. Jang Hayoung was overcome by the overwhelming helplessness and couldn't move. The Breaking the Sky swordsmanship that Jang Hayoung learnt was too weak. The techniques he learned through the wall weren't enough to deal with the Constellations. Jang Hayoung held the place that was hit by the Demon King and gazed at the fighting Kim Dokja. The Demon King of Salvation had long waited to meet, was struggling. His ribs and right arm were broken. Jang Hayoung wanted to fight together. Only the stars in the sky were shining without mercy. There were so many stars, so why wasn't anyone helping them? The exclusive skill Unidentified Wall was activated. In fact, he had done it many times already. He sent messages several different times to the modifiers Kim Dokja mentioned, but there was no reply. Nevertheless, Jang Hayoung kept sending unanswered prayers to Constellations. Please, just one person. The Unidentified Wall asks, Do you really want to help? The wall was slightly vibrating. The Unidentifying Wall asks, Do you really want to help? He nodded. I want to help. I can accept any price, please. The next moment, numerous messages appeared in front of Jang Hayoung's eyes. Hello. Do you perhaps know Kim Dokja? He is looking for Constellations. Hello, Constellation. You don't know me, but I have a favor to ask. If Kim Dokja... Constellation, please help me. Kim Dokja's in danger. Please help. Please. Jang Hayoung read the hundreds of messages that surfaced in front of him with a blank expression. They were all messages from himself. There are currently 124 messages waiting to be sent. To be exact, they were messages he thought he had sent. Why? Goosebumps covered his entire body. It was the reason why a reply didn't come from the numerous constellations. The Unidentified Wall said, I was told not to send it. Who? The Unidentified Wall says, it is an existence higher than me. He didn't know who it was. However, Jang Hayoung could see what he had to do now. Send them! Right now, send all of them! The Unidentified Wall was silent for a moment. The Unidentified Wall is sighing. Don't regret it. The next moment, his head was going to burst from the pain. 125 messages have been sent. Like water being discharged from a dam, numerous messages that were released from Jang Hayoung flew through the sky. Time passed. 1 minute, 2 minutes, Jang Hayoung stared up at the sky without releasing the string of hope. The constellation One-Eyed Matria has entered the channel. Then somebody answered. Similar to a meteor shower, the sound of people entering the channel didn't stop. The constellation Brash Swamp Predator entered the channel. The constellation Sho Al-Ilpil has entered the channel. The constellation First Spiritualist of Joseon has entered the channel. The constellation Goryo's First Sword has entered the channel. The constellation of a Small Planet has entered the channel. The distorted balance of the sky changed, and Jang Hayoung listened to all the messages with joy and despair. The constellation Secretive Plotter has entered the channel.